Welcome. You know how some companies just seem to dodge every bullet, no matter what the world throws at them? Well, it's not luck. It's a really powerful framework called GRC. That's governance, risk, and compliance. Today, we're going to decode the strategic map that separates the survivors from the statistics.
So here's our plan. First, we're going to explore what we're calling the modern business minefield. Then, we'll break down what GRC actually is. From there, we'll get hands-on with a toolkit professionals use, see how it's customized, and finally, we'll put it to the test with one of the biggest challenges out there today, data privacy. Let's dive in.
All right, so picture the modern business world as a literal minefield. Seriously, there are hidden threats everywhere. Cyber attacks, new regulations, you name it. One wrong step can be absolutely catastrophic. That's why having a map isn't just a nice little extra, it's mission critical for survival.
Which brings us to the big question, right? How do you survive, let alone actually grow, when you've got threats coming at you from all sides? And it's not just about building walls to keep the bad guys out. Sometimes the most dangerous threats are already inside.
First, you've got the obvious one, the constant, relentless threat of digital attacks. A single data breach can paralyze your company, completely shatter the trust you've built with customers, and just drain your bank account.
Then there's this tangled web of legal stuff. It feels like new regulations are popping up every single day, and if you fail to comply with just one of them, well, the fines can literally wipe out your profits for the year.
And like I said, the threats aren't always from the outside. Sometimes it's the internal chaos, disorganized processes, wasted money, and just plain confusion that can cause a company to implode from the inside out, leaking value until there's nothing left.
Okay, so how do you get through this minefield? You need a framework, and this is where GRC comes into play. Let's decode the system and see how it helps you take back control and build a solid foundation for growth.
At its heart, GRC is really all about integration. See, without it, you've got different teams working in their own little silos. One team chasing business goals, another fighting security threats, and a third trying to keep up with legal duties. GRC comes in and just smashes those silos, creating one cohesive strategy so everyone is finally moving in the same direction.
I love this metaphor. It's the perfect way to get it. Think of GRC as your company's central nervous system. It senses a threat, it coordinates a response based on established policies, and it makes sure the whole body, the entire company, moves in a way that's both ethical and compliant.
So, let's quickly break down the three pillars. First, you have governance. This sets the rules of the game and the company's ethical compass. Then you've got risk management, which is all about scanning the horizon for dangers and building a defense plan. And finally, there's compliance, which just makes sure you're playing by all the external rules. When these three work together, you get a company that's truly resilient.
Okay, so theory is great, but how does this stuff actually work in practice? Let's pop open the toolkit and look at the real instruments that turn this big idea into concrete action.
GRC professionals rely on a few really key tools to get the job done. We're going to focus on two of the most powerful ones. The ROSI matrix, that's responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed, which clarifies who does what, and the risk register, which helps you manage threats before they become disasters.
First up, the ROSI matrix. Its entire purpose is to eliminate confusion. And the key, the absolute most important part, is understanding the difference between responsible and accountable. The responsible people are the ones doing the work, and you can have a bunch of them. But the accountable person, that's the one individual who ultimately owns the outcome. Getting this right is critical.
And here's how it works in a real crisis. A data breach hits. You need clarity, and you need it fast. This matrix shows that the CISO, that's the Chief Information Security Officer, is responsible for activating the plan, but the CEO is the one who is ultimately accountable.
For isolating the system, the IT lead is responsible, but the CISO is accountable. See? It's instant, clear direction when you need it most.
Okay, next up is the risk register. Now, this is not just a list of things to worry about. It's a plan for action. You take a specific risk, like a phishing attack hitting the finance department, you rate its potential impact, you define a clear plan to deal with it, and you assign a specific owner. This is how you turn anxiety into actual, concrete action.
Now here's something really important to remember. GRC is not some rigid, off-the-shelf product you can just buy and install. It's a flexible concept, and it has to be tailored to your organization's specific size, your industry, and your goals.
The good news is you don't have to start from scratch. There are these popular blueprints you can adapt. For example, COSO is fantastic if you're focused on internal financial controls. ISO 31000 is more of a universal guide for risk management. And COBIT is built specifically for managing IT. You can use these as a foundation to build your own custom-fit GRC system.
All right, let's wrap this up by applying everything we've talked about to one of the biggest challenges businesses face today: data privacy. It's the perfect real-world test for any GRC framework. You hear it all the time, right? Data is the new currency. And just like actual money, it is now heavily regulated. Governments all over the world are passing really strict data protection laws, and that creates a huge compliance and risk challenge for pretty much any business that handles personal info.
I mean, just think about the big ones. Europe's GDPR, India's DPDPA, California's CCPA. They all have different rules and can hit you with massive penalties. A strong GRC framework is pretty much the only way to manage this kind of complexity so you can systematically lower your risk and make sure all data is being handled both legally and ethically.
So, we'll end with a question for you to think about. In a world that's constantly changing, where new threats pop up all the time, having a robust GRC framework isn't just about avoiding fines or preventing disasters. It's about building an organization that is resilient, accountable, and sustainable. One that's truly ready for whatever comes next.